Welcome back, everybody. In the last couple of videos, you saw me install the tail vise on the end of the bench and craft up some vise chops to go in there. Now, to be able to fully use the bench vise to its capacity, I have to drill dog holes. The way that I'm drilling the dog holes is a little unusual. Not too crazy, but it's different. And I drew up a little diagram, right? Kind of shows how I'm doing it. I have two series of dog holes running up either side of the bench. Basically, one 2x6 in from either edge of the bench, and then I have one dog hole right in the middle between those two, and then one that runs along the front side of the bench. And this is kind of mainly to illustrate why I have the leg here, so I had to span it a little. The gap is a little bit wider here than it is the rest of the holes. And then obviously I moved it out far enough to do exactly what I want, and it'll do everything that I want, but it'll miss my vise. That way I can go all the way through the bench. So in true fashion, I mocked it up, just using pennies really as the dog holes, or where the dog holes are going to go. And I can't really see this penny, so we'll move that one. All right. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I should use some older pennies. All right. So with this setup, the idea, right? So I have one 2x6 that goes right here, and in this set of dog holes runs the length of the second 2x6. However far I want to go down the bench. Right now, I just have it going about 7-8 inches past my leg. So I still have a good 30-something inches of no dog hole work surface on the front of the bench. I don't think I'm gonna need anything longer than this, but if I do, I'll drill the holes when I need them. So this, I'm going to go ahead and explain why I'm going to drill the holes in this design, if you will. So the bench tail vise only opens up 6 inches, right? That's the travel, 6 inches of travel inside the vise when it's fully opened. So each dog hole can be no more than 6 inches apart, right? Because that's all that this back jaw will travel, is 6 inches. No matter where the dog holes are on the chop, it'll only travel 6 inches. So each one of the dog holes has to be less than that. Or I'm going to end up having to use some kind of brace across the two dog holes I'm trying to use, and work it that way. Or I could just drill another hole if I really wanted to mount it in a specific way at that time. So I'm going to drill these holes in this fashion to give me two main ways of clamping a piece of work. A 2-point clamp and a 3-point clamp, right? So here, if I have something that is a couple inches wide, obviously I won't be able to put it here and grab it between these two far apart dog holes. I'm going to have to utilize either some kind of brace that goes between the two dog holes, and then brace that up against that that support that goes across, or I can use, that's if I want more real estate covered when I go to clamp that up. And this will make a lot more sense, I think, when I actually drill the dog holes and put a demonstration to it. So this one here is basically, so this is 0.1 and these are 0.2 for the 2 point. So that's just one dog on either end of the board. So I can use that, that's fine, that's 2 points. And then for larger stuff, I can use 3 points. So just one and then whatever two I want to use at the other end for however long the board is. The reason I went with a 2 and a 3 point is simply on the main vise I have two dog holes here, and then I have 2 running up. That gives me a 4 point, right? So the problem with a 4 point is that when you put, and it's not terrible, I'm just trying to improve on my previous design, right? So, or the previous way I had it. It's definitely not my design. If, say I wanted to clamp a piece of wood, right? One pair is going to clamp stronger than the other side, right? So this side is loose, and this side is the first one that's engaging. That can have that can be from a few different things. Either A, I drilled these holes not exactly perfect distances from one another. Even if I'm off by a 64th, that's 15,000ths of an inch, and I'm going to feel that when I go to clamp, right? So these two right now are holding, and these two are not. Until I go to put more pressure on it, now they're both holding. The only problem with that is that now there's more pressure here than there is here. And that, a lot of times, just like I did here, is going to leave, you can't see it, but it's going to leave marks in your workpiece. So that's the problem with that. So I went to a 3 point so that it wouldn't have that problem anymore. Right? So if I go to a 3 point, now I'm eliminating that. I just have this 1 point, it'll contact these 2 points, and then wherever I tighten this down to, that's what it is. So that'll hopefully damage my pieces a little bit less. And obviously 1 and 1, it's not going to give you any differential pressure points. So the only damage you're going to have on your wood is the damage you put by clamping too hard or whatever. Of course, if you're going to be clamping really hard, I would suggest putting some kind of strong back between your clamp and the workpiece, just so that you can widen the distance that you're contacting that part, and it'll evenly distribute that pressure across your piece. That's really about all I wanted to, and if it's a larger piece, I'll use the 3 point, smaller, thinner stuff. Obviously I can't do it here, so I just do it with the 2 point. And so that's why it looks kind of weird, and I think that's going to work out really, really well. There's 4 inches, when the vise is closed, there's 4 inches from here to here. And then there's 5 inches in between all the rest of the dog holes, with the exception of this gap right here, because this, again, is where my leg is. I don't want to drill into my leg. And they're this wide apart because I have my vise right here. All the hardware and the base and everything, the screws and the guide rods are all right under here. So I want to be able to drill all the way through. That way my chips go all the way through, and I can also use these holes for a hold fast if I choose to do that in the future. And that about wraps up what I'm doing here. I'm kind of running out of time. I was going to drill out the dog holes, and well, first thing I was going to do when I got home was put the shape the lid, because I glued that lid on, the reinforcement on the top, and I was going to bevel form it up, shape it the top, and then put the finish on it. But I kind of ran out of daylight, and then I got caught up doing something else, and so I wasn't even able to drill the dog holes tonight. But that'll be, if it's nice tomorrow, I'll be putting a finish on the tool chest, and I'll bring you guys along for that. And I don't know, it's gonna have to dry, so I guess I'll be drilling dog holes while it dries. If it's pretty. If it's not, maybe we're just drilling dog holes tomorrow night. Barring any unforeseen holdups. So yeah, if you see a flaw in my design, please leave me a comment. Let me know before I drill these suckers. But I don't foresee it. I've put a lot of thought into this, and I think I'm going to be really pleased with the result and how it's going to work out. The holes that I'm drilling are 3/4 inch, so it'll be standard throughout the entire bench. I'm really stoked. I've used the vise already quite a few times. It's great because I can saw right there at the edge of the vise. That is freaking phenomenal. It's awesome. Yeah, and so I'll just give you a shot of what the shaping. I was able to shape this morning, or this afternoon when I got home from work, but it kind of turned out a little weird. I knew a little bit of what to expect trying to plane plywood, but it is what it is. It kind of turned out a little pretty neat, I think. So there it is, and let me I don't know how well you're going to be able to see it, but you can kind of see that. So that's what it looks like, and I beveled it. It's got all four sides have a bevel, and it kind of turned into this little step layer looking thing, which, well, that's what you would imagine plywood to look like when it's beveled. But it kind of gives it like a border. I think it looks kind of neat. And then I just feathered it in with the original top, and I finished it off pretty much with a. I used my new shooting plane. Since it was large, it had enough mass, and it had the skew blade, and my iron was already sharp. That's the main ticket. So I had a sharp iron and a good plane, so I went ahead and used it. Then kind of went over and did the final touches with the block plane and a scraper. And I hit it just very lightly at the end with some 150 grit. Just like one pass over the whole thing. I did take a plane just to kind of smooth over some of the hills and valleys of the plywood. It was pretty straight though. I was pretty impressed with how flat it was. For being 3-ply, it was kind of bowed out pretty good. But it all came together in the end once I glued it down. So I did run the plane across the top, and like I said, touched it up at the very end with some 150 grit. Yeah, so if you're digging what I'm doing, give me a thumbs up. Subscribe, do whatever you feel like. Yeah, I guess tomorrow's dog holes, so stay tuned, and that'll be coming up soon. Friends and family, I love you. Everyone else, I'll see you on the next clip.